Hey, this is Anita Anello, and welcome back to my podcast, The Messy Middle: One Mom's Journey to Build a Profitable Online Business. Today's episode, I want to talk about this imposter syndrome. So, we hear a lot about the imposter syndrome in the online space, and essentially, if you're not familiar, what that means is sometimes when we show up in the online space or show up just in a new adventure, a new business venture or something like that, sometimes we can feel like we're not really our authentic self. That can be one definition of it. Sometimes we model our messages after somebody that we admire, a mentor of ours, a coach of ours, and we try to mimic the same thing that they're doing. And so that's another reason, or kind of a definition of an imposter syndrome. If I have somebody I follow and I absolutely love the way that they speak and the way that they operate, and I try and duplicate everything that I do, then I can feel like I have an imposter syndrome because I'm not being authentically me. And so that's one of those things that I just want to talk about today, because specifically as successful corporate women of faith who are shifting over and wanting to start an online business. They have like a God-sized idea inside of them. We're always talking about this, and want to build a business based on their specialized knowledge and this idea of growing something bigger than themselves. The imposter syndrome for us can actually work itself out in a couple of different ways. And so I just want to talk about that. I want to break that down and see how that looks when we go from the corporate space over to the entrepreneurial space, and just ways to be able to overcome them. So ladies, kind of buckle up as we go through some of these different options. And I just want to break through, you know how I like to do, just give you 3 quick, like practical and tactical things that you can use so that you can implement today. Just know on every episode of the podcast, my heart's desire is to be able to give you practical tips and tools, or methodologies that you can implement in your life right now today, whether you are an entrepreneur and you're launching a business, you're successful in your business, you're in the corporate space and you want to move over into the entrepreneurial space, whatever that looks like for you. These are tips that you can actually implement in your business right here, right now, today. That's always the desire. So here we go. Let's talk about a couple of things. So when it comes to the imposter syndrome, one of the things that I would recommend that you do is first acknowledge your accomplishments. So oftentimes when we have this imposter syndrome, it feels like maybe we kind of feel like a fraud when we show up in spaces. That might be too strong of a word for you. You just don't feel authentically you. Maybe you're even discounting your own accomplishments. So I really want to talk about that a little bit first. So number one is acknowledging your accomplishments. Sometimes when we're in the corporate space, we can have like the accolades and the awards and the title and the income that goes with being super successful. But when we start to shift over into a new area, I noticed this in my journey, when I started to shift over into a new area of business, then I didn't have some of those same I didn't feel like I had some of those same markers when I ventured out and started creating businesses for myself in new arenas outside of the corporate space. So I didn't quite have like almost like the muscle memory and the experience and the same footprints of being able to say, see, I have all this success over here. Look, I've done all these things. Because in some ways some of the last businesses I've started, I was starting from scratch. So that was true when I started an Amazon business. Not as true when I started a coaching business, because I had already coached, I don't know, something like 350 people before I started my coaching business. So, but I noticed as an entrepreneur that it took me some time to kind of settle into my own and really reapply the skill sets that I had in one space in a different arena. It's the same thing. We run into the same thing when we try and take our specialized knowledge, our skill set, and switch industries. Don't we know, if we, like I came from the tech space, I worked for a global software giant, and if I wanted to reapply that same skill set, let's say in, I don't know, pharmaceutical industry or in manufacturing or something like that, like I would have to figure out a way to reapply and shift my language around having the skill set and reapplying in a new way. The same things happens to us as an entrepreneur. We have to really kind of take an inventory of the accomplishments that we have. And sometimes it's a matter, you guys know, if you've watched me for any length of time, I like to journal things out. I like to write things down so that I actually see on paper, hey, you know what? I'm actually good at this and this and this and this, and I can reapply those skills. Don't we know is that we can always reapply those skills in a different way. So number one is acknowledge the accomplishments of the things that you've already done, because you're not a fraud if you're just simply shifting your focus and the way that your income comes in, or the way that you are doing business, or the way that you are deciding to serve the world and the audience that you're called to serve. So just have some just acknowledge what you're already good at, and then look for ways that you can reapply that. You might even do a grid. I have a tendency to think visually a lot of times. So what I'm thinking of here is maybe I started to list the skill sets and saying, I'm good at public speaking. I'm good at, being able to do project planning. I'm good at being able to set goals, long-term goals and short-term goals and all that kind of stuff. And then perhaps the next thing I could do is I could list off a second column and say, like, here's the ways that I could reapply those in my new industry or in my business, so that I would have the confidence to know that I'm already successful. So the second thing is that actually segues into it. It's looking for ways to build your confidence. So confidence is really key in overcoming the imposter syndrome. And what I want you to do is look for ways that you can develop strategies to build your confidence. And that could be things like, sometimes I build my confidence by just kind of talking through the new idea. I have a tendency to process information out loud. So what I might say to my friends or my family is, okay, I'm going to say something and it might sound crazy, but I'm just going to say it out loud to see if it's really crazy. And then that actually helps me process, is this a good idea? I have a new idea for a new business to launch, or I have an idea for something else that's new. And so one of the things that we can do to build our confidence is to actually talk with other people. Now, I'll always give you a little asterisk on that, a little kind of like a little bonus side note, is always just be careful who you speak to. You want to continue to look for ways to share those maybe personal, intimate, crazy ideas with people that you can trust to actually encourage you and cheerlead you. And champion you in the midst of that. Don't go and share those kind of crazy ideas with somebody who's going to be like down pushing and say, that's a horrible idea, I don't want to do that. So if you're also looking for a community of like-minded women, come join our community. We do just that. Like, we champion each other as women to be able to go after these big God-sized ideas and dreams that we have, and these visions that we have that sometimes don't make sense to other people. So the first thing in building your confidence is possibly talking to people about that. The second thing that you can do in building your confidence is you can practice some positive self-talk. So if you follow along with like John Acuff in Soundtracks, excellent book, or Zig Ziglar in Born to Win, or See You at the Top, or a lot of the programs that Zig Ziglar and the Ziglar Corporation has, is being able to, on a regular basis, remind myself of who I actually am and what I'm good at, and being able to coach myself in the way. And even Scripture recommends that we are to really coach ourselves in shifting our mindset and having that cheerful attitude and the positive self-confidence that we are on the right track. So those are a couple of things. The other thing that builds your confidence is setting achievable goals. And so possibly, I don't know about you, but possibly I'm not gonna switch from my corporate job over to an online business with, no money, and in 24 hours or 6 months, maybe even 12 months, kind of depends on where you are and what business you're launching and all that kind of stuff. But what I'm driving at here is possibly you're not going to go from, I had a 6 or 7 figure income in the corporate space, and then all of a sudden I'm replicating that in the online space with brand new clients, brand new processes, brand new ways to market, brand new, everything. And I'm probably not going to go from like a revenue of 0 to, I don't know, a 6 or 7 figure business like overnight. It usually doesn't happen that way. So just a heads up on that. So set some achievable goals. And as you do that, it'll like practice the skill set of setting the small achievable goals on a regular basis is really what sets the discipline of building our confidence, of letting us know like, oh, I can totally do this. Because don't we know that just like in our corporate career, every time we set a goal and achieve a goal, it reminds our mind and our body and our just everything about us like, yeah, I can do this. I can totally do this. Okay. The other part is what I want you to do is set yourself up around like mentors and peers. And I talked about this a little bit earlier, but let's dive into it just a little bit more. So what I mean is, let's just be clear about it. I think everybody needs a coach. I think everybody needs a coach in lots of different areas. You can have mentors, coaches, peers, sometimes not your peers. Like I know for my business, when I went from trying to do things on my own to paying to be part of a high ticket mastermind, my productivity like hockey sticked up because I knew that I had invested in myself, and I knew that I needed to bring like my A game in being able to be in a group of people that were they knew what they were doing. They could give me good, solid direction. I could stop listening to all the noise of all the overwhelm of everybody else that was out there, and I could take practical steps to be able to move forward. And that process worked really well for me. It's one of the things that I know for myself, and it's one of the things that I do in my business is helping people do the same things. Is just take those practical steps. For me, it's taking your specialized knowledge and turning that into an online business. So that would be a couple of things that I would recommend. So just kind of reminding you, we're talking about acknowledging your accomplishments and then building your confidence along the way to be able to overcome this possible imposter syndrome. The third thing that I want to talk about is embracing your unique perspective. Oftentimes and we'll wrap up with this third key for today. Oftentimes in the corporate space, I don't know about you, I know this was true for me. Sometimes in the corporate space, I felt like I had to hide the fact that I was a Christian, that I was a believer. I had to hide the fact that, I had a faith in something different than somebody else. I know some organizations today really embrace all sorts of different kinds of viewpoints more than they did years ago, and so that might be more helpful. But most of the people that I speak with that are Christians in the workforce, oftentimes what I hear the most common thing is they don't feel like they can be their authentic self and share the truth of what they believe in the corporate setting because they're afraid that they're going to be ostracized. So if I have that feeling in the corporate space and then I move over to launch my own business, sometimes I can have kind of like those leftover feelings like, well, it was never really safe to speak out about my faith in front of my boss when I worked for that big tech company. And so then therefore it might not be safe for me now. But I really want to encourage you as a core, someone with specialized knowledge, a successful woman already of faith, a successful person that's moving into the entrepreneurial space. Like the world needs you, and the world specifically needs you to show up with your viewpoint, your skill set, your faith, your voice, your values, your perspective, your unique perspective on maybe your unique perspective, I don't know, I think I don't know, on marriage, of being between a man and a woman. I'm not saying there aren't different kinds of marriages out there, but I'm going to come to the table and say like, that's, a healthy marriage is going to look like this, and this is what I want to model, and not in an offensive way. If that offends you, I'm sorry, that's not the intention, but that's what I believe. And so I'm okay to come into the space and say, hey, this is the values that I have in my life. If you have different values, you guys know me well enough to know, then that's okay, sit in your values. But what I'm getting at here is those are part of the things that are part of my unique perspective, is that I'm showing up in the world today, speaking to the audience that makes the most sense for me based on my voice, my viewpoint, the skill set that I have, the values that I have, all of these perspectives that I have. And I would actually encourage you and say that it's a unique advantage right now today to bring that authentic, true part of yourself. The other thing, as we circle back to this big topic about imposter syndrome, wouldn't it make sense that if I feel like I am not bringing my true self to the table, each and every day I show up for my audience as I'm trying to draw in my right fit clients and then repel the ones that aren't the best fit for me? Wouldn't it make the most sense that I would show up how I really am and not like put on the face? If for those of you that are probably in my same age group, if you remember, like a long time ago, we watched the Jetsons, and the mother would put on like this fake face when she was on a video call. And don't we know, like today, we don't want to do that. We want to show up real and authentic, and that also helps us overcome the imposter syndrome. So I just want to encourage you to show up in your proper identity, show up in your unique strength, show up in just the ways that you can benefit the community that you are called to serve, and just be okay with showing up in your authentic self. Because here's the great news of the, 8 billion people on the planet. The great news is you're not called to serve all of them. You're only called to serve a segment of those. And so when I show up authentically and say, hey, I'm Anita, this is me, these are the things I believe in, this is how I talk, this is how these are my mannerisms, this is how, I use my hands a lot when I talk or something like that. Like, I want to be able to show up as my authentic self each and every day with my unique perspective and personality and skills, so that I can serve those that really need it the best. So be so well today, ladies. Just know that a couple of things. I have a free resource to be able to take your specialized knowledge and turn it into the business of your dreams. If you want to look at that, I'll post a link in the comments when we post the podcast episode. Also, if you want to be part of the community that we're launching right now, we have a community of women who love Jesus, love one another, and really want to be champions for each other. And that's the kind of community that we are cultivating here. I also want you to know that anytime I post content, feel free to give me some feedback. Anita, I tried it and it worked. Anita, I made some breakthrough over here. Anita, I don't understand what you mean, but I'd love to hear from you. Go ahead and message me. You can DM me or put your posts in the comments below, and we'd love to hear from you. So ladies, be blessed today, and know that you already have all the things that you need to be able to take your next step forward and implement the steps that we were talking about today. Be well.